So, okay guys, I want to tell you two stories. So, I was sitting with my father and talking about music, and I have to say that he's like a huge Beatles fan, and we were sitting in the kitchen and just having a nice chat, and that was until I called the Beatles a pop band. Then his eyes literally turned red and he started saying, "Oh my God, how dare you call Beatles a pop band? You don't know anything about music and you're such a horrible daughter." No, I'm just kidding. So, the second situation, I was sitting with my guitar teacher who plays in a really famous Russian metal band, and he tried to give me a Led Zeppelin solo, but I said, I don't like Led Zeppelin, and we just started talking about classic rock and stuff, and he said a very interesting phrase. He said, "Well, yeah, my music tastes are kind of pop." And that made me think of how differently people perceive music genres, and especially pop music. So I want to ask you guys, who thinks the Beatles are a pop band?
Yes.
They're classic. Just raise your hands, please. Okay, who thinks the Beatles are a rock band?
Yeah, rock band.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who thinks, I don't know, Deep Purple are a pop band? Yeah. Nobody. Okay, and everybody else thinks they're a rock band, right? Uh-huh. Okay, so the answer is they are rock bands. Yeah. And they're pop acts. Before you start throwing Rotten Tomatoes at me, I want to get down some ground theory. So there are three essential types of music, academically speaking. There is religious music, there is secular music, and there is folk music. Let's define what secular music actually is. So, secular music is that kind of music that you gotta know, gotta have some background, some knowledge. For example, opera. You have to know libretto. You gotta have some knowledge to understand what they're thinking about. Or jazz. You can't just play a John Scofield record and immediately fall in love with it. You gotta have some music background. So you gotta have some experience to listen to those kind of music, and everything else not so complicated is a part of folk music. So you don't need to have any history education to listen to Victor Tsoi, because he thinks we need changes. Well, I've heard that since the French Revolution, and Metallica is actually, you don't need education to listen to Metallica, because any metal band, any rock band, it's a part of pop culture. I have a friend who's a very famous jazz music journalist, and I remember him complaining that all of his friends that listen to rock, they say how smart they are listening to that kind of music, and how dare you speak about pop music. And when he starts to talk about jazz, they say, well, you know, jazz is way too complicated for me to listen to. So why do we keep confusing, keep saying that rock music and metal is a part of secular music and not the folk music? For example, I've actually had a teacher at MGIMO who was teaching some cultural aspect, and he was from New York, and he asked us to call him Dr. Boris, and he was bragging about how he has a friend that writes classical music, and that guy plays the real music, not that horrible music that Rammstein band makes. So his mistake was not that he thinks that Rammstein is awful, but that he compared secular music to folk, and they have completely different audiences, and they have completely different purposes. The only justification of distincting pop from rock can be found in the perception of subcultures of their authenticity. Actually, that pop rock war was started in the 60s by the so-called rockers and hippies, because they wanted kind of like to look authentic in their subculture. So, but it was very well motivated because they were living in the post-late capitalism, which was very politically exclusive of them. So in my opinion, there is one of the main reasons why people keep calling rock music secular is the interference of technology into music. Imagine there's a guy who wants to be a musician, and it actually takes from 15 to 20 years of hard work to master any instrument, guitar, bass, I don't know, synthesizer, anything. But then comes the computer, and now instead of sacrificing his personal life to music, he can just get the samples and write music with samples. You can see how that degradation of music, which was, and compare that music that he made compared to the pop music, the most simple music in the 1960s, rock and roll, it sounds very, very lowbrow. So it's that degradation where the music that was lowbrow 60, 40, 30 years ago, nowadays it looks very, very lowbrow. And that's why my father blew up. Not because I called the Beatles some kind of other genre other than rock, and because I mutually called it unauthentic. But pop music, it's not actually a genre because it goes way back to the 40s. Pop music has always been here. Like in the 40s, it was jazz, it was swing music, and jazz was never as popular as in the 40s. But then the black guys decided that they don't want to make music that the white guys could play. So what came? Rhythm and blues. Rhythm and blues was the most popular genre in the 50s. Then came rock and roll. Then came rock music. Then came electronics, hip hop. So it's not bad to call a band a pop band. The word pop goes way beyond genres, and that's why people nowadays are afraid to call Imagine Dragons a pop band, because the word rock, it gives this false feeling of authenticity to the band. So thank you, and listen to some free jazz.